part A, part B, they're both renovations. Part A is basically prep, like you're about to do a job. Here's kind of all the nuts and bolts and science behind what you need to do. And then B is actually getting the work done. I would suggest that a lot of you are going to be living right in this camp. So you may want to at very least keep it as a good reference upon graduation, or you'll be doing it as soon as you graduate. Either way, I'd suggest it's a good reference for you. So 403AA, so part A, page 2, we have to kind of define some things. So the first one is a contractor. You'll hear a lot that term contractor. You have building supply houses have contractor prices. We are the contractor for this job, that kind of thing. And in terms of this material and the code, a contractor is the person who's in charge of everything. So there's kind of the person paying the bill, think of the homeowner, and the contractor. And those two people are at the very top. So one test question I'm going to ask is, what are those contractors in charge of? That bullet point list on the bottom of page 2 are the answers. So negotiation with owners, contracts, hiring, accounting, permits, and insurance. So negotiation with owners, the person paying the bill or the people paying the bill, they want something done, and your job as a contractor is really difficult. You have to figure out what's inside of their head and how to produce it. So you have to ask a lot of leading questions, lots of pictures, lots of definitions, and can they afford it, and can it be done? Really, really big questions, and your job as a contractor is to get that done. And typically, at least on the island, the carpenter is the contractor, because he or she's at the job right from the beginning, right to the end. And all the other trades kind of show up when they're needed and then come in and come out. So very rarely is a different trade a contractor, almost always it's the carpenter, which my point is it's going to land on your shoulders. Lots of contracts, hiring, accounting, permits, and insurance. We're going to talk about each of those as we go through. So be aware of that. Test question number 2, or a second one, is what is a supervisor? That's page 3. And you could kind of think of a supervisor as the job foreperson. So let's just pretend it's my company and I'm the contractor, like my company's the contractor, and one of my employees, one of you folks, would be in charge of the group, and your job is being a supervisor, which means you're the job foreperson. So you're in charge of scheduling, contracts, housekeeping, like whatever happens on site, that's up to you. A thing I want you to write at the bottom of page 3 and other test questions, you can write the phrase manage client expectations. Manage client expectations, and I'll explain that when you're done. So as the contractor, you're in charge of budgets, timelines, hiring, making sure you get everything done that you promised you're going to get done, all that sort of stuff. If we have a problem and we can't meet the deadline, could be all of your employees got sick and you don't have any employees this week. Could be the building supply house ran out of whatever you're trying to use. Your job is to communicate that with the homeowner. If you promise you're going to have this job done before Christmas, you better darn well have it done before Christmas, or have a really good reason why not. And the worst thing you can do is come on December 24th and say, whoops, we're not going to make the deadline. Because then you're going to have really upset people. If you communicate with them constantly about how it's going, we're on schedule, we're behind schedule, we're ahead of the budget, we're behind the budget, whatever it happens to be, the happier you're going to be. So you're going to what we call manage client expectations. Does that make sense? I would suggest of all of those things, in terms of your longevity, if your company's gonna make it or not, that would probably be the most important facet. Honoring everything on page 2, but being very clear communicator about what those are. That is also mentioned on page 4, all of those bullet points. I won't get into them, you can read them. But you wanna make sure everybody's aware of everything, and that includes your employees. You want them to know what's going on as well. So on page 6, one of your jobs as the contractor is to communicate with all sub-trades. Typically, you're hiring all the sub-trades. Often you're paying them as well. You're charging the client more money, but the money goes through you to the subcontractors. Those subcontractors, there's a list there: electrician, plumber, heating, drywall, etc. Those folks are going to come at very important parts of the project and need to get there. And if they don't do their job, it's hard to move forward. I'll talk about that here in a minute. You're in charge of the contract, like I said, and on page 6 and 7 they talk about that. So again, getting that concept, what does the homeowner want and how do you deliver it? The best way that us tradespeople can do that is a drawing, a blueprint. What you're learning with Casey and what you're going to be interpreting with us and producing with us a fair bit this year. How do I make exactly what's in my client's brain? For example, next semester, you folks are going to build shutters for someone in Nova Scotia, Fortress of Louisbourg. You're going to talk to them online, but you're never going to go to the Fortress of Louisbourg. You're never going to see an original. 100% of the information we're getting is off a blueprint. So that client sent us a blueprint, and that blueprint is the contract. This is what I want you to make. So that picture, the blueprint is, a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's exactly what I'm giving you. So when I say you're in charge of contracts, part of that is a drawing, and part of that is getting that information from the client's brain down on paper. So you're gonna have a preliminary drawing. This is what you're thinking of. Yes, but I want the bedroom a little bigger, or I need more outlets or something like that. Then you'll have changes, and then you'll have the final drawing. And that final drawing is part of the contract. If you ever went to court, either to defend yourself or to sue the homeowner, you would bring the blueprint and say, look, I followed exactly what was expected of me. So that drawing is part of the contract. Page 8, estimates, schedules, and contracts. Part of your contract is you have a bid, you have an estimate on money, you have a schedule, and you have subcontracts that go with that. So if you look on page 8, you have to pay for permits, contracting, labor, demolition, waste removal, hoarding, rough carpentry, electric, windows, exterior finish, etc. And each one of those is a bullet item. Every one of those has to be on target, and if they're not, and often they're not, you need to manage those expectations and let the homeowner know, here's why prices are changing. Page 11 is a very simple calendar, just like everybody's totally familiar with, and that shows how the project's gonna go. But the problem with that is it's very static. What I mean by that is, let's just pretend we're the contracting company, so we come, and this is my basement that we're living in right now, and I wanna demo everything and make a big bedroom out of it. So the first thing we're gonna do is get rid of all this stuff, then we're gonna strip down the walls, then we're gonna put in new plumbing and electrical into the walls. So you folks need to show up tomorrow and demo this place. If you don't get that done tomorrow, the plumber and electrician are coming on Monday, so they can't do anything if you don't have your job done first, right? It's all like sequential order. The plumber then the plumber and electrician come, they lay their pipe and their cable into the wall, then we seal up the wall on Tuesday with gyprock. Does that make sense? So if I don't clear this out today, they can't come Monday. If they don't do their job on Monday, we can't put the gyprock on Tuesday. So not only is everything a very finite schedule, but each step is required before we continue to the next step. Does that make sense? In other words, if my plumber doesn't show up for a week, this job stalls for a week because we can't put the gyprock on, we can't move forward. Do you know what I'm saying? So we call that a critical path or a critical step. Each one of those things that's on the calendar, if it doesn't happen, we can't move forward, that's called a critical path. That plumber must show up and must finish their job or we can't move forward. So this calendar you see on page 11 doesn't really work because I have spaces delineated for all this different stuff, but if on step 3 the plumber doesn't show up, every step behind that falls behind. Does that make sense? So now I'm going to look at page 12, and that's called a Gantt chart. Same thing, but looking at it different ways. So across the top, you see 1 through 14. That represents 1 day's worth of work. So there's 14 days worth of work represented on that chart. And going down on the left side are all the things that have to happen. And they're in sequential order. So day 1, I'm going to get lumber delivery, electrical disconnection, and I'm going to hoard in. We'll talk about what hoarding in means in a minute. And that's day 2 as well. Day 3 and 4 are framing and window delivery. Day 5 is electrical, etc. Right? So if I don't get my lumber delivery, everything stops. So what I'm saying is on the 5th day of action, we're going to have electrical in. I may get stalled 3 days, but it's still my 5th day of action. So I still have a clear path of what needs to be done, and I can see right away where the problem is. Does that make sense? Next semester, you're going to work with what's called project management. You're going to make Gantt charts, and you're going to work with this complexity. And we're going to use the timber frame project as the real life project that you're going to work on. And you'll see, you'll have a critical path for all the pieces, and all 18 of you are going to make different pieces. And the folks that take longer are going to slow the whole process up, because we've estimated it's going to take 3 days to make this piece. Well, that person may take 6 days, and the whole Gantt chart will get backed up because we're not reaching our targets, that critical path. Page 13, what you can write on that page is add, edit, delete. So I had my own company for years. And our contract, our budget, our timeline, our Gantt chart, all that are our very, very best guess. I don't think anybody's going to be trying to be a crook or deceitful, but things do fall off the rails. So it's rare that things don't change from the very, very beginning. And we want to manage those expectations. So we have a contract we've all signed. Our company has signed it, we're bound by it. The homeowner has signed it and they're bound by it, and all the subcontractors in between. But then things change. Big snowstorm, COVID, whatever it happens to be. And so as they change, we bring out a new contract called add, edit, delete. Okay, you want the bedrooms a little bit bigger now that you've seen the layout? No problem. We're gonna add on or edit the contract. We're running behind, we're gonna add on or edit the contract, etc. So we're gonna always manage expectations, and by doing that, we're updating the contract that we signed so that everybody's fully aware, and to be perfectly honest, you're covering your butt as you go. Colton, you were in like job foreperson for a while. You've seen contracts go off the rails and timelines go sideways?
Yeah.
And how'd that happen? Like, were they?
It can be like the smallest things. I'm doesn't show up if they have an appointment or something, they're gone for a couple hours, that sets me behind, that sets the day behind, and it spirals.
And did you work much with the homeowners?
Oh, yeah.
And you manage their expectations? Here's what's going on, here's what's wrong, here's,
Some of them don't like it, but yeah.
yeah. Probably, I don't wanna speak for you, but probably an uncomfortable conversation, you're not looking forward to it, but you're glad you had it at the end, because at least you don't get to December 24th and say, oh, by the way, you can't celebrate Christmas in this house because it's not built. At least they know a month ahead that this is happening. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, well, I was at a house there it was supposed to be 2 months, and we ended up being there for a year.
Wow.
When we were in there, it was February. Yeah, it was February. We were in there working, they left and they lived in an Airbnb for a while. And they decided to shut off all their plumbing, everything in the house. So whenever they came back and turned everything on, all their pipes burst, so all their walls got filled with water.
Ah.
And the flooring and the ceiling and everything was ruined. So we had to demo essentially the whole house.
But that was their fault? Yeah. Yep, so a 2-month job turned into a 1-year job. There you go. Page 15, two test questions here. For permits, I'll say it like this, most places in PEI, you're gonna need a permit. The truth is, the only place you need permits in PEI are Charlottetown, Summerside, Stratford, that I'm aware of. There may be more. But I still stand by what I said because the vast majority of islanders live in those areas. So the vast majority of people you'd be dealing with would require a permit for what you're doing. And so what I want you to know is, for a permit, there's a few things you need. You're gonna pay fees, so you're gonna pass those on to the homeowner, but they're gonna cost you. And then typically, depending on the municipality, you also need, and I want you to know this, a copy of the plan and a copy of the blueprints. So you're gonna pay us, the city, you're paying us, what are you doing, how do you plan to do it? And you're gonna have to provide all those. Some Charlottetown, depending on what you're doing, if you're actually building a house, you have to show proof of insurance. So you can write that down too. So you can't just be kind of a fly-by-night person. If you're a subcontractor, if I'm working under a contractor, I don't need any of that. I'm just under his or her umbrella. Sorry.
It was Charlotte, Summerside,
And Stratford. You don't need to know that, but
and Life's one.
yeah. Okay, and then page 16 and 17 are the finer points of the building permit. So that's all I wanted you to know for that book. Kind of how to get ready for it, how to be prepared, that sort of stuff. And then on to B. Now we've kind of got the contract, we got all our logistics and paperwork ready, hired all our subcontractors, and now we're getting started. So, page 2, what I want you to write on here, they talk about demolition, so kind of think of this book, both books are a sequential order. We land a job, we do all our paperwork, all logistics, now we're ready to start. So day 1, we're gonna start demolition. So what I want you to write on that, which they talk about a little bit but not much, is demolition is very complex and dangerous. So I've seen a million times over, people come in with sledgehammers and crowbars and just start ripping and tearing. Well, there's so many problems with that. That's the test question. What is a demolition? And the answer is it's very complex and dangerous. And what I mean by that is, what's behind that wall? Yep, and I know, for example, because we have to replace it, the air compressor is 600 volts. So that's 3 times the power that goes in your house. That is, if you look at it wrong, you're gonna die. So if you get hooked into with it with a crowbar, you're definitely gonna die. So what's behind that wall? Lord knows. I don't know, you don't know, but probably something that can kill us. Could be gas, could be electrical, could be water. Water's no big deal. I'm not gonna drown, no, but it could shut the house down for a whole year when it was a 2-month project,
Is it a low?
etc. Is that pillar, that one, my blueprint says that wants to go. Can I tear that out? Probably not. Not without dropping this whole building on our head. So we need to be really, really careful. What kind of building materials in there? Asbestos, lead, mold, all those things you know can be very detrimental to your health. So I would say, and there's 2 questions on there, and I think the other one is something like demolition should ultimately be for the most experienced builders. It often goes to the young, tough, inexperienced, strong young people, but it should be for the most experienced because there's so many hazards involved with it. Page 4. When we're demoing, often we're not gonna just completely destroy the whole house and start fresh. We're keeping portions of the house. Very, very often the flooring is gonna get saved. So what you wanna do with flooring is either keep the rug, if the rug is there, they almost always throw the rug away, so you keep that there, kind of like you can think of it as a drop cloth. Or the other thing you need to know for the test is cover it with a durable and waterproof membrane. And often those are 2 separate things. So usually we lay down plastic and then plywood on top of that.
Durable what?
Durable and waterproof membrane, and often those are 2 separate things.
And this is for hardwood.
Could be anything, could even the subfloor, you don't wanna damage it. Protecting the flooring, you could say. The bottom picture on page 4, the bottom right, that's a smoke detector. And it's wrapped in newspaper. Why is that? So I'm gonna make huge amounts of dust, then I'm gonna bring in a paint contractor. He or she's either gonna roll or spray, so I don't wanna destroy the smoke detector. I wanna keep it active the whole time, but I wanna protect it from dust, paint, etc. So I wrap it in newspaper. Why is that?
Because dust sets it off. Because dust sets them off sometimes.
Dust will definitely set them off or completely ruin them. So I could wrap it in a sandwich bag. I've got 3 empty ones in my lunch kit right now.
Because smoke can still get through
Yeah.
the newspaper.
Paper will burn and smoke, and plastic will melt and shrink wrap. So it may give you a false sense of security. If it gets hot, it may just melt around it and make the smoke detector not work. So you'd either remove them, which is not advisable because you want them functional during the test, or during the demo, or you can wrap them in newspaper. Page 5, I said I'd get to this, so this is part of the test, hoarding. There's pictures of hoarding on the bottom of page 5, and that means you're wrapping the entire construction site and keeping it safe and dust-free from the public. And that could be just the kitchen from the rest of the house, or it could be the entire house from the outside public, all the neighbors around it. You're wrapping whatever the project is basically in plastic, you're hoarding it in, and you're confining the dust and debris and danger from, you're coordinating it off from the rest of the public. Good? Page 6, so keep in mind, we're still in the demo phase, so often there's digging. If I wanted to add a little addition to my house, this is our house, and I wanna add in another bedroom off to the side, I'm gonna have to dig down and put a foundation in. So I'm still at the demo stage. If I'm digging around a house in a neighborhood, I almost guarantee there's varied utilities of some sort. Water, gas, electrical, any number of things. and there's a code, unfortunately, we all have black and white books, but there's a code of tape. You can think of caution tape that the police put up around a crime scene. It's exactly that tape, and they're different colors, and the different colors have different meanings. Those meanings are on the bottom of page 6. I don't need you to memorize them, because you probably won't need this information for another several years, but when you get to it, know that those colors mean something. And so what they do is they'll bury something, and 2 inches above whatever they bury, they put the color tape right above it so that you're aware. So you'll know they're laying fiber op all over the island. When they're digging near utilities, they'll dig with an excavator, huge scoops that could pick up your car. That's how strong it is. And when you get within 4 feet of one of those utilities, you have to hand dig. So big scoops, boom, boom, boom. We get in within 4 feet, we have to get in there and dig out. Why? Because if I do 1 scoop, I'm taking out that much dirt, and hopefully I see that tape before I see anything else, and I'll know to stop, and I'll know, given the color, it's either water, electrical, gas. Yeah. Exactly. So you probably heard there's PSAs all the time. Call before you dig. Have you ever heard that phrase? So if you call the utility company and say, I'm going to put an addition on the outside of my house and it's going to be here, and you mark it off, they come out free of charge and say, yep, you're able to dig, no problem. Or in this corner over here, there's a problem, you're going to have to hand dig. Then, and you follow that, then you're totally covered. If not, you have to pay for all the damage. And fiber op is extraordinarily expensive. Like, it would bankrupt the company if you got into that. So you always call before you dig. But know that there's different colors for different things. What I do want you to know on page 7 is you see the guide there for how deep things are buried: electrical, water, gas, sewer, telephone, cable, TV, and there's many more. What I want you to know is the top 3: electrical, water, and gas. So electrical and gas are between 18 and 24 inches, so say they're 20 inches deep. And water is 3 to 5 feet deep. So why is water deeper? I'm guessing electrical and gas are more hazardous. They're gonna, of the 3, electrical and gas would kill you before water. So why am I burying water deeper?
So that doesn't freeze.
The freeze-thaw cycle, you have to be deeper than 3 feet. When we put the posts in at Brookvale, we were 4.5 feet deep, 54 inches deep. When I was working in the industry the whole time, you had to bury posts 4 feet deep, and now it's 4.5 feet deep. I know Charlottetown and Somerset, I don't know about Stratford, but I know most municipalities here require 54 inches. Does anybody know why they do that? Why it changed? Why they put an extra 6 inches?
Because it's cold.
No, because we're lazy, and you can't count on people following the rules. So they'll drill a hole. They'll drill a hole 4 feet deep, and then they'll come out. And what happens? What happened in our holes?
It got filled.
Crud falls in there. How much crud? I don't know. This much, this much, this much, and now I all of a sudden have a 3-foot hole deep, 3 foot deep hole, and then I say, nah, it's good enough.
So they compensated for human laziness.
Yep, 100%. Yep. So really, all we care about when we have a post in, we don't want frost to grab it and jack it up. If we're 4 feet deep, we know, at least in Prince Edward Island, that's deep enough, it's not gonna get frost heave. But we also know we're lazy and 3 feet's good enough, and it's not. So I want you to know, water's in 3 to 5 feet deep because of freeze thaw. And electrical and gas are in about 20 inches deep, about 2 feet deep, because we don't want people to kill themselves when they're putting in a vegetable garden. Electrocute themselves. Page 8, PPE is ultra critical. Ears, eyes, and dust ears, eyes, toes, and dust, I would say, are the biggest ones. Hard hat probably too, depending on the level of demo. Page 10, I've said before, cleanliness is next to godliness. Like when you're demoing, flatten nails, load the dumpster. I think I said my first summer ever in the trades, I was in junior high, and I gave myself the title of dumpster technician. I didn't leave the dumpster, I just loaded it, put the wood over here, put the metal over there, bent down nails. That was literally my whole summer job. Page 12, I want you to know this, again, right under manage client expectations. Back to that example I had. I want to build an addition onto my house here. I got a little bungalow and I want a new bedroom on the backside. Managing client expectations. I have something in my mind and you have to build it, but your job, unfortunately, not the homeowner, your job is to keep things realistic. So what you would say to them is, we can do that, we can add an addition, no problem, but this house was built 25, 50, 100 years ago, and I cannot match the siding. The siding for the new house will not match. They don't make that. Even if they did make this yellow siding, they don't sell this yellow siding sun faded from 50 years ago. So there's no such thing. So you have to manage that. We know it's not gonna match, ma'am, sir. Here's some alternatives. We can make a different siding, we can accentuate that. There's an infinite number of solutions, but you need to manage that. Page 13, what I want you to know is there's the list of subcontractors again. It's the second time we've seen it. And what I want you to know about that, because we're doing estimates and timelines and Gantt charts. So really, really important. We're either making money on this job or we're gonna go bankrupt. It's kind of one of two things. And what you need to know for subtrades that I'll test you on page 13 is that most of those subtrades are coming 2, if not 3 or 4 times, and I'll just explain that. When we come and we're doing demo, day 1, do we want the electricity to be live or cold? Probably. Cold. So we're gonna get the electrician and kill the power for us, please. Then we demo, we're down to strip bare walls. Now we wanna put new outlets in. That electrician's coming back and running new wires and putting outlets in. Then we put the gyprock on, paint it, and then we want to bring in and put utilities in, let's say wiring in a dryer, an oven, those sorts of things. The electrician coming the 3rd time. And then at the end, we want to turn the power back on. So for that one subcontractor, we're bringing them back 4 separate times at critical path points to make sure things happen. Does that make sense? So, and that would be the same with plumbers. Plumbers have to turn the water off, get rid of all the utilities, run new plumbing in the walls, hook up the new bathtub. So they're coming at least 3 times. So multiple visits from each of the subtrades, from many of them, not all of them. Okay, closing in the walls, page 14 and 15. We're gonna skip past that. I'll go to page 19. What is best? What happens? I think we saw it. Remember, we were at the glass factory, the timber frame that Paul took us down at the end of the tour downtown. Max Auto, yeah. So I don't know if you heard us, but we were all marveling, wow, these timbers are in really good shape. We use the word, they usually get beavered up. So they're big, big timbers, and tradespeople think, oh, I'll just punch a hole through that and put my ventilation or my electrical or my plumbing, and that destroys the integrity of that. So one thing when we're on the rebuild that is also gonna be on your shoulders as a contractor is make sure everything is up to snuff and code. And so the best way, what I want you to write down on page 19, the best thing for plumbers to do, that you're encouraging them to do, is run their drains and their plumbing parallel to the floor joists. So, I have a bathroom upstairs. And within reason, I'm going to run my plumbing and my drain parallel like this, because I can run through the chase, run through the opening between those floor joists, as opposed to running it like that, because then I'm gonna chop up every single one of those floor joists, making that second story weaker. Sometimes I don't have a choice and I have to put metal gussets in around it, but for the most part, I'm gonna encourage them to run parallel. Page 22. When we're on a rebuild now, and when we're rebuilding, we have holes in the walls and we gotta fix those. Holes in walls, floors, ceilings, everywhere we have a hole. What I want you to know is there's something called a backer or a backer board. They have a really good picture on the top of page 23, and all of those are the same. So you're going to square up the hole in the floor, ceiling, wall. And then you're gonna put backer boards on that, like you see on the picture of page 23. And that gives something firm to screw my gyprock to, or my flooring, or my ceiling to, so that I can patch that wall. Does that make sense?
You're calling it a backer?
A backer board or backer, and you can see it's labeled right there. 2x4. That picture on the top right of page 22 is called is a backer as well. Also, I want you to know on page 22, the bottom three pictures are what's called lath, L-A-T-H-E, lath or plaster lath, and that's old school gyprock. Before there was gyprock, we put wood slats. We're going to see these tomorrow at Orwell. Please remind me if I'll make sure I point them out, but you can remind me. They put wood slats like this on the wall, and then they put a slurry of plaster on, and the plaster kind of slumps over the back of the wood slats and locks on. That slump are called keys. Those keys lock in because this plaster lath wall would have weighed literally a ton, 1,000 pounds. Huge, huge pressure and weight. And so the lath holds it up, and the gaps between the lath allow for keys to lock in and hold the weight. And we're gonna deal a lot with lath in heritage properties.
With what page or?
That was page 22, Bob. Page 27. So again, we're all often talking about additions. Not so much anymore, but people really wanted bay windows for a long time, and so we're adding a bump out on the house. We're keeping the same footprint, we're just adding a little, maybe 6, 8, 10, 12 inches up more to the house, and we're just bumping it out. And we call that cantilever. So what you see, the joists on the top of page 27 are cantilevered out, or sistered on. So we have all of our joists are going like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to go just 6 more inches that way. So I'll put another joist next to it, and I'll cheat it out like that, and I'll gain the 6 inches that way. And I'll go on to the next one and cheat it out. Does that make sense? And the mathematical equation, or the code legal way of doing that, cantilevering, is 1/3, 2/3. You can write that down, that's a test question. 1/3, 2/3 method. When I cantilever on, or I sister on, and I come out like this, I want to go, my homeowner wants 6 inches out, so I'll go like that and bump it out 6 inches. I must have 2/3 connected to the existing board and only 1/3 cantilevered out. 1/3, 2/3 method. Right, so if I have a 9-foot board, I have 6 feet here and 3 feet there.
Is it only this picture? Is that?
Yeah, that, it's only the top picture on page 27. And the bottom picture is adding on joists at a 90 degrees from that. So you're light bolting them in. So the top is, what is that method called? 1/3, 2/3. Okay, page 29. When I'm ordering doors and windows, when I'm ordering something to fill an opening, that is an opening in my wall. I'm filling that opening, typically it's doors and windows. I'm gonna use RSO, you can write it down, they don't have that initial. They have masonry and other things, but we call it locally RSO, rough stud opening. So, page 29. Call Home Depot, I need windows in a month. I'm gonna give you my RSO for these windows, my rough stud opening. When I put my tape measure on, I'm measuring that opening. I also want you to write down, how do I measure it? Width times height, W times H. Mr. or Mrs. John Doe at Home Depot, I'm giving you an RSO for my window, and it's 18 by 24. There would probably be more follow-up questions, but that's really all the information they need. 18 inches wide, 24 inches high. It's a window with an RSO of 18 by 24.
What's that stand for again?
Rough stud opening.
Is it relative? Is
No.
that why it's not in the book?
Nope, they're keeping it really generic, so they're giving you masonry openings, outside measurements and rough openings, and we call it RSO. Yeah. And that's all I have for that test. Is that good? Okay, I'm gonna pass out a test.